RockstarLeatherworks.com is your home for badass rock and roll gear. Featuring 100% handmade leather bands, watches, cuffs, bracelets, and more, Rockstar Leatherworks has something for everybody. Whether you are going to the show or you are in it, you can find something to fit your needs. Choose from a variety of designs or create your own masterpiece. Their bands and watches are second to none. They also ship internationally. Who needs a stage to be a rock star? Check out RockstarLeatherworks.com.
If you need to promote your band or business, or just want to stylize, personalize, or customize your ride, check out vid-decals.com. Want to create and customize your own stickers representing your band, or make your own bumper sticker? Vid Decals can do it. All stickers are printed on quality vinyl and can be placed on any flat surface. Stickers are an affordable way to promote your band or business. Go to vid-decals.com to get started. That's vid-decals.com. vid-decals.com.
Hi, this is Bobby Brown, and welcome to another fucking podcast.
You kids with your loud music and your Dan Fogelberg, your Zima, hula hoops, and Pac-Man video games, don't you see? People today have attention spans that can only be measured in nanoseconds.
See, son, old legends never die. They just lose weight.
Like a legend and an out-of-work bum with a lot of life.
Hello, you crazy dead fucker!
Party time!
Yes, Courtney, it is party time. Hello, Hollywood. Hello, world, and hello, my loyal minions. It is good to see you, and as always, good to be seen. My name is Izzy Presley, and welcome to another fucking podcast. I have a very special guest in studio this week. We are live right now via the Spreaker machine, and I'm sharing it on the page right now, so just bear with me. Live now with Neil Turbin, the original voice of Anthrax, a great fucking singer. He's got a couple other bands, Death Rider and Bleed the Hunger.
Yep, how you doing there, Izzy? It's great to be in the studio with you here.
Welcome to the Hurt Locker.
That's right, man. It's somewhere other than Hollywood that I'm seeing you. This is kind of cool.
Right.
Without going on a cruise and getting seasick.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be chatting with Neil here in a second. Make sure you hit up the social media stuff, facebook.com/another effing podcast. And of course, my personal page, which is Izzy Presley 1 on that Facebook machine. Hit up Twitter, Izzy_Presley. I'm on my quest for 1 million followers. I think I'm currently at about 1,790 something. I don't know. I didn't look at it lately.
I think you can improve that if your tits were like 20 times
if
bigger.
I had, other than the man rack that I have right now, if I had a very, very nice set.
Really big.
Then
you could get like more followers. It's automatic.
It's true. And you just got to show off a little cleavage here and there, and the guys go, ooh, I got to follow her. Look at those.
Or there's another option. If you can join, like, I don't know, like the Beatles or something.
That would help. That would help. Being in a very famous band would help. One of the biggest bands of all time. Obviously, the last name Presley has not helped me, even though it's fake.
They might think you're related or something.
Yeah, that's always the hope. But I don't know.
We kind of need that guy.
Right. Well,
we need some members.
That's right. I mean, because my name basically is stolen from Izzy Stradlin and Elvis Presley. So, I mean, what can I say? What can I do? Hey, make sure you hit up our sponsors as well. You heard the, you heard the Vid Decals and you heard the Rockstar Leatherworks, but I'm proud to be sponsored by Beater Amplification. These great hand-wired, handmade amps out of Mankato, Minnesota. Check out Beater Amplification, Beeter, Beater Amplification. Sass Pants Designs, that's for you gals out there. You got all these cool old school rock and roll t-shirts. You're like, I want something that fits a little bit goodlier. So you can send them to her. Send them to Mel over at Sass Pants, and she will turn that shirt into like a tube top dress, which is always hot, or tank tops. And she just makes them hot and brings out the boobies.
I'd like to see you wear it right now in Minnesota, like outdoors. That'd be awesome.
Yes, when it's 24 degrees,
it gets really, kind of, pointing at attention there.
Absolutely, that is worth
Right.
That is worth a Pat Fontaine laugh.
Yeah.
All right, cool. There we go. I got the Pat Fontaine laugh. Pat? You don't know
met him.
XYZ?
XYZ, yeah.
Yeah. He's got this killer fucking laugh. I had him on here a while ago, so I had to keep it as a yeah. It's fucking great. He's French.
I used to play with Bobby Piper, who was in XYZ.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
So he played with Pat. This is a while back.
Right.
We had
Way
a band
back
called
in the
Wrecking
day.
Crew back in
Really?
back in the late 80s, early 90s.
I did see. This is all shit. This is why I don't do research. I like finding out this shit. On the fly. So Neil, you are the original voice of Anthrax. That will never change. The first one, but we'll get into that just a little bit because you do so much other stuff. But I don't know a lot about you. I mean, where were you born? Where'd you come from?
Sure. Well, when the spaceship landed in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
At the hospital, in the Stork, and, Hebrew National. And so, yeah, I was born in Brooklyn and, grew up in Queens and Manhattan, a lot of time in all the boroughs. And I don't have my New York accent talking here.
Right.
It's, I actually did. But then one day my mom said, "Who are you hanging out with? Like all these guys that were, I was talking like this, yo, man, what the hell? Hey, so she just was like, if you want to be in this house, you got to start communicating."
Wow. So your mom made you get rid of the accent?
No.
Okay.
But it just kind of, it's kind of like a switch. You can go and they, yo,
right,
Louis, hey, come here. It's just, I don't know.
Does it, when you go back home, does it come back out?
Well, I think, I think that, you kind of pick up things from your surroundings, from your environment. I guess it's kind of, I don't know. When I was hanging out in the UK for a while, I didn't start talking like Madonna, but,
Right.
And when I was in France, I didn't start talking
like Pat Fontaine?
Frenchies. But, yeah. Or in Mexico.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think you can, kind of pick up on what the locals do in those places. I think in New York, it's very contagious. If you're around that for 6 months, you're back to talking a lot heavier in that accent. But, when you're outside of that, and I don't live there now, so, it's just not, I guess if you're really there, I don't know, some people just have that. And I was born there. I grew up there. That's my background. But being out in California, I came out here in 85 and went through, a musical education on a social level, going through many, many auditions, working with a lady called Lucy Forbes of Rock Congress, and she took me on auditions for all kinds of bands. She put together Dave Reese into Accept. She put together the guys in Slaughter with Dana Strum. She was involved in a lot of stuff.
Right.
She put me in touch with Vinnie Vincent Invasion. I auditioned for that. That was a weird one.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about that.
And, I was also talking to a guy named Carrie Sharaf, who was a really great guitar player and had amazing songs. In fact, what's interesting is I talked with Mark Bowles about it, and because he was the singer for Carrie Sharaf's band, and he's on the demo tapes originally, and he was out of the project, so to speak. So there's a lot of that, it's just like, but his what he did vocally on that was amazing. And what ended up happening is I went on the audition, and my vocal direction at that point, I'm in my early 20s at that point, I was less of a soul singer and more of a metal singer.
Okay.
More of just a straight rock singer that grew up with, all the classic rock bands of the 70s, grew up with the heavy metal bands of the 70s and 80s, grew up with, soul bands because I am from New York. You had the, all the Jackson 5 and all Stevie Wonder and all the Marvin Gaye and all the soul, all the doo-wop, all of these bands that were, there. And, of course, Twisted Sister and Kiss and Ramones. I was part of the punk scene. I used to work at Max's Kansas City and the Ritz when it first opened. I was at Max's on the, before they shut down over there. And, so I got to see some stuff, and I was there when I was like 15, 16 years old.
Right.
So, I was there pretty early on when the Ritz first opened. And, it was a rock and roll experience, and being there by, St. Mark's and 8th Street and Bleecker Street and all
Right.
these places that are famous, by Electric Lady back in the days when, it was like an enigma of Jimi Hendrix, and anybody that could be in that studio is going to sound amazing because Jimi Hendrix was in there or something.
Right.
Hanging out by Washington Square Park, knowing people back in the day. I have friends that I'm still in contact with from back there. Two very amazing musicians. One is Nicky Buzz, who was in the band called Vendetta. And I would see Nicky back in the day, and he was an interesting cat because he was this black dude that played with James Brown as a drummer.
Holy shit.
And he also sang for a band called Sun that was on the Live at CBGB's album. But he wasn't in the band Sun when I saw him. He had his own band called Nicky Buzz and the Bullets that became Vendetta, which was on Epic Records, produced by Max Norman. And in 1982 or 3, somewhere around there. They kind of had an Aerosmith kind of sound, but, AC/DC like, and with shredding. And the funny thing about Nicky, he told me the story, and I have to tell you the story.
Let's hear it.
So they were opening for Van Halen. They were on tour. It was Van Halen and Vendetta opening up. And they did this show with Van Halen, and Nicky had this idea that he was going to go out there and play Eruption.
Oh, Jesus.
So they opened up their show with Eruption. And I can tell you that was the last show they did with Van Halen.
Right.
But that takes some balls.
Yeah, that's testicular fortitude right there.
Now, Nicky was originally from Chicago, but he was in the New York City scene, and he's a fabulous musician. He's over in Netherlands now, in Amsterdam, and he plays. He's a blues player. Plays great music over. He does a lot of big shows in Eastern Europe. I think he just did a massive show over in Poland, so he's playing in that part of the world. But what an amazing guy! And when I was like, oh gosh, 16 years old or something, I was sitting in a rehearsal room with Nicky and 2 other guys in his band. They had a 3-piece, a trio. And these guys, the Bullets was their name. Before they were signed, they did these demos and stuff, and wow, they were just like, I was inspired. I was just sitting there like, holy crap, how in the world do these guys play like this? And I mean, I was just blown away by the drummer was just, tight and hitting hard, and the bass player was playing like an 8-string bass, and it was
Jesus Christ,
filling out the sound. And the guitar player Nicky, he was doing hammer-ons and shredding like all over the place, but singing like AC/DC vocals, but higher. And it was just like, I was just sitting there like, why can't my stuff sound like this? It was just so good. And his songwriting was great.
Right.
He had these really great songs, and you can listen to the Vendetta album, which is actually on YouTube or somewhere. Buy it. I would buy it.
Yeah, buy it.
But
buy your music, please.
But just to check it out, and they're a cool band, and the production on their album, I didn't really think it did justice to the band, but they were an amazing band, and they were, I grew up, and I was at the shows like for the band Stars, so I would go see them at Great Gildersleeves. I did shows at Great Gildersleeves. I was really good friends at the time with Richie Rano, and I'd see him from going to all the Star shows. And also, I'd see him at different conventions in New York. The Rock and Roll show, or there was some shows that they did at the Statler Hilton back in the day, and these conventions like in the 70s. I was there, and I was front row to see the Ramones in like 77 or no, 78 or something like that. Yeah, it was.
What's that like? Did you know what you were seeing at the time?
Oh, yeah.
You understood it? You got it?
Yeah, I got it. I was young, but I wasn't that stupid.
Well, right. Because there's sometimes, I didn't know if you were very familiar with the Ramones before you saw them, which I'm sure you were. Because there's bands for like for me where it's like, yeah, I'd heard them. It was like, okay, whatever. Then you see them live, and it's like, what the fuck have I been missing? Holy shit.
The Ramones were a New York institution, and they were really kind of close to home for me because they're from Queens, and so was I. And they were more approachable in the sense that these guys, maybe they want to sniff some glue. That was a song they had or something,
right,
or a lyric. And they really were doing stuff like that. And these guys really were like hitting it hard. Like they were like pre-Metallica. They were like the coolest thing
right
before there was a Metallica that got heavier. The Ramones, they had the vibe, they had the leather jackets, they had the hair. They were like the Beatles on steroids. They were just like, they had these songs that were very appealing that way, but they just had this chemistry, and it was so cool being there. And people don't really know that that's kind of my background, that I was part of the punk scene and part of the Ramon, like that was one of my favorite bands. And I would go to see them and got to see them also at, I'm trying to think of the other venue that's in downtown New York. I mean, a few different venues. So I had the opportunity to Irving Plaza. That's where I saw him.
Okay.
I was with a guy who was a friend of mine, excuse me, back when, and his name was Vinny Zafonte. He's a guy that was a media guy. He was like one of the first, what do they call those guys that go and take pictures and Paparazzis. So he was like the second paparazzi guy.
Okay.
So he was this gay guy. So he just wouldn't leave me the fuck alone. But Vinny and I, he was at everything. He was taking pictures of Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and all this stuff. So anyway, I'm like on the train, and Vinny's on the train. I see him coming back. I'm coming back from a show. And I see him, and it's like, I mean, it's just that kind of thing. How you doing? I don't care if people are black, white,
right,
Chinese, Mexican, Jewish, Protestant, Christian, Catholic. I don't care. That doesn't matter to me.
Right.
That, people are people.
Yeah.
And if they're gay, they're gay. As long as they're, not trying, as long as they're not trying to, get me to convert to their belief system.
Yeah. Just don't try to throw it in me and we're fine.
Yeah. And don't try to get me to eat anchovies and I'm all right. Because that ain't going to happen. Unless you like barf.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever eaten anchovies.
Exactly.
I don't think I want to.
And there's other stuff.
But, right.
But it's like, people, if they're cool, they're cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't judge them for, because they believe in some stuff,
Right, exactly.
That's their beliefs. That's cool. I think we've lost that today. I think that line's been crossed today. If you believe in the wrong thing, I can't like you anymore. That's the way people seem. That's the way the current generation seems to be. But back on the point, I think.
Well, let me ask you this before you go. You were in the punk scene. I mean, were you rocking the mohawk?
No, I always had long hair. I never was one of these people that I got to go through a personality crisis and cut my hair and become David Johansen, who singer for the New York Dolls. Now, David Johansen didn't have a personality crisis, or maybe he did, but it was the song they had, right?
Yep.
And he had long hair, and those guys used to dress up in heels. I think it was before Kiss.
Yeah, it was before Kiss. It was before Kiss. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of that going on. People get ideas from other people that gave them the ideas. But I guess everybody in rock and roll is pretty much guilty of that whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
They got to be inspired by someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. It's like the more you talk to, people from the metal genre, and even though I hate these fucking, the hair, I hate hair when they call it hair metal. It's fucking rock and roll. I mean, to me, that's what it is. From that, even into the grunge, how many of these musicians were actually came from the punk scene? And so inspired by the punk scene.
I think there's a lot of crossover, and actually I think that there's it's interesting when you see it out there in whether it's magazines or TV or media or now social media. I mean, before the internet you had the stuff on TV, in the 90s, right? There wasn't like before 1996, I don't know who was looking on their iPhone. I don't think anybody.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So in other words, like the internet, you weren't even using that. There was a few people like Jeff Soto who had a website.
Yeah.
He was there first, one of them. But, people after that point, they started getting warm and fuzzy to it. I was always into the computer thing because, I had family that was interested in that. But, Pong really didn't turn me on too much.
Really? Pong was awesome.
Yeah, it was cool at a bar and it did one thing. But
Right.
But, also... The other person I wanted to mention was Steve Johnstadt. He was a guy they call him Zeus, and he was out here in LA for a long time. And I was looking for him for a long time because I always admired him as a singer. And he had a band. He was in the band Sun, the same band that Nicky was in.
Yeah.
They changed their name from S-U-N, which is on the CBGB's live album, to S-O-N. And I used to go see him at Grey Gildersleeve's and at CBGB's. And I had this ex-girlfriend back in the day that used to work at Lieber Krebs. So they were the managers for all these big bands like Aerosmith and Michael Bolton and Scorpions and Def Leppard, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's a long list. So I learned about Humble Pie. I mean, I learned about a lot of bands from, just hanging out with her.
Right.
And I'd get these tapes and things, back then. It's like, here's a box of tapes. I'm like, okay, who the heck are these guys? Saxon. Like, I got the Saxon tape in 1980 on Carrera Records. I'm like, holy shit. I got to do some practicing.
Right.
This is some killer shit. Wheels of Steel. And I was already a big fan of Riot. I was already a fan of bands like that. So it's like, okay, once you gave me Saxon to go with Riot, you know, that was a huge turn on for me to have this kind of music that was just, you know, I mean, I loved Judas Priest. I loved,
right.
you know, Black Sabbath. I loved Deep Purple. I like bands that were popular at the time. Ted Nugent, you know,
yeah,
he was cool for what he did. I mean, I like the progressive bands, Yes and Kansas, and you know, of course, Boston and Journey and all the bands really that were writing good songs. And you know, I like the Southern rock stuff too. I like Michael Schenker. I mean, I like UFO. There were AC/DC. I mean, you know, the list goes on and on and on. Zeppelin. You know, it's kind of like the earlier bands that I liked. You kind of grew tired of them because you listen to the shit over and over again.
Yep.
And you know, the records are worn out, and I'd fall asleep listening to stuff on headphones.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I got like Beatles overdose and Stones overdose first, and then it was like Led Zeppelin overdose. So after I OD'd on Led Zeppelin, it was like, okay, now I got to go find something else. Like, and that's what happened. And also like being part of the whole scene in New York, you know, I was exposed to these bands that were really interesting, cool bands. And there's some bands that people don't even know about. Like I was there with Wayne County and the Electric Chairs, who became Jane County. And they had some really cool songs, you know, If You Don't Want to Fuck Me, Baby, Baby Fuck Off. And,
Love
you
it.
know, Nighttime is the Right Time. And I think that was a cover, but they, you know, that was a band that always was rocking, even though Jane was Wayne and so on.
Right.
You know, goes back to the Vinny thing. You know, it's like, hey, you stay over there and I'll stay over here. I'm just in a band, like, but it was cool, you know, to be part of that whole scene. And Steve, I was telling you about Steve Johnstad, you know, from the band Sun. Well, the band Sun eventually became this band called Mayday.
Okay.
And they were on A&M Records in 1982. What a fucking great singer. And the guy was in CBGB's. I'm standing there. That place was like, I mean, it stunk like pee. The bathroom, don't go in there. But this guy, he had a double bass drummer back in those days. And this is like way back. I mean, equipment was expensive for us guys who didn't have lots of cash.
Still is.
And, you know, drummers just didn't have double bass equipment. And who's going to lug that shit around anyway?
Right.
And who had a van to move 2 bass drums?
Right.
Huge swimming pool bass drums. It's like John Bonham's kid or something. And, I mean, these things were big. Big old bass drums. 26 or 28 inch or whatever.
Jesus Christ.
You needed to take up the whole elevator or whatever. Of course, you didn't need one to get into CBGB's. But so what happens is Steve, he gets up on the bass drum in the middle of the song while he's singing. He does a handstand. And he's holding himself up on that bass drum. And I never seen anything like that. I'm like, okay, so some chicks will do handstands occasionally against the wall. But this guy's doing a handstand on stage while he's singing. I was like, holy crap. How do you follow that up? I mean, and that was the days when, you know, David Lee Roth, you know, first 2 Van Halen albums.
Yep.
I mean, okay, so he does the big kick and flies through the air like the Russian guys.
Yeah.
And you know, so it was just like, okay, there's a lot to be said for being a front man. And then what was funny is me and Steve, you know, I did go to Back in Black when they were at the Palladium with AC/DC's first show after, you know, Bond died.
Yeah. Did you get to see him with Bond?
Yeah, no, I wish. But big fan and admire,
How can you not be?
admire him in so many ways. I mean, really a true icon of rock and roll and being a front man, you know, at the highest level, and also lyrics. I mean, his lyric writing, he writes in limerick, and it's very, you know, entertaining the way he writes, and it's like a sense of humor,
right? But
which is kind of cool.
Bon Scott, he had a swagger about him.
Yeah,
he had a swagger to his demeanor, and I think that's one thing that's missing in today's music is you guys there's nobody that has that fucking swagger anymore.
That's what I loved about AC/DC. And and I think that did change a bit with Brian Johnson when he got in the band, but I liked Brian Johnson, and I thought he did an excellent job.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, Back in Black, of course, was an amazing album. And, you know, his career with AC/DC, you know, I miss Brian being in AC/DC, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I think Axl did a fine job singing.
Yeah, he did. He killed it.
But I think that, you know, Brian Johnson, that was, you know, I was very fond of Brian Johnson in AC/DC. And, you know, things change. I mean, what are you going to do?
Yep.
Things happen. But anyway, so seeing Steve, you know, it was an interesting time. So what happened is I went to the Meadowlands with Steve. So we were I'm trying to remember, like, because I had this girlfriend and he knew the girlfriend, and that's how we all kind of were friends. We actually went in a limo, excuse me, and I think it was with Joan Jett's band.
Oh, wow.
At the time, because a girl who was also working at Lieber Krebs was his girlfriend. And she was also her name was Carol Kay. So she was, Ricky Byrd's girlfriend. So
is this the Carol Kay that went on to
not the bass player?
No, but she ended up being a publicist, correct?
Yes.
The same one that she was
big time with Kiss. She was like the one that worked with Bill
Kiss.
Coyne.
Oh yeah.
She was a sweet girl, and she was amazing, beautiful girl. Like wow.
I've tried to deal with her before when I was trying to get an Ace interview. It didn't go as well as planned, but it happened. Right, well, the interview didn't happen, but yeah. I think this is later on in her career.
Yeah,
though.
this is way back.
Yeah.
We're talking 1981, something like that. So anyway, what's really interesting is in that same little connection, I didn't quite make it to Studio 54. I just kind of missed the boat on that one. But we went to this place called Privates, and I was in the limo with Carol and with Ricky Byrd, who is not in Joan Jett yet. So we went with his girlfriend. So we went to Privates, which was this club. You had all these different clubs in New York at the time. And, that were like the scene. And that club was uptown. And we went to that one. And there was this bald dude that was a guitar player for Joan Jett at the time. And this is before, all these hits and all these cool songs.
Yeah.
I Love Rock and Roll, way before that.
Which is the cover.
So I was there, with Ricky, and we're like watching Joan Jett. And then the next thing I knew, he was in the band, and then, it's all over MTV, and it's like, okay, I got to hang around these people more often.
Yeah, no shit.
Shit's happening around me. It's like, wow,
right.
Being right in that. And, we had like John Waite in the limo. I mean, stuff like that. It was just like those kind of people. So, I didn't really, hang out with these people, but I was like pretty much in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then some other interesting stuff that happened with me back in New York is, and we're reaching back into days gone by, but it's still interesting stories to me.
Oh, I love it.
And one of the things that happened, which I don't know if people knew, but with that guy Vinny that I was telling you about, we went to a Cheap Trick concert. I was about 15. I was in high school. And, back in those days, it's like, it was like Van Halen days, like Van Halen 2. So it was cool to wear overalls. So I think I had like a pair of white overalls or something, and I had a Cheap Trick shirt on because I went to the Cheap Trick concert.
Of course.
And actually, Vinny, being the guy that he was, he knew how to find these people. He knew where everyone was to take their picture. So he's this paparazzi guy that was up everyone's, wazoo, just like pouncing on it, getting the picture. So we went to the Parker Meridian. See, I remember all this shit. We went to the Parker Meridian Hotel. It's on Central Park, right there, and we're in the elevator. And you ever see that album by Cheap Trick in color?
Yes. It's down there somewhere.
Exactly. Well, you saw the album.
Yeah.
But imagine walking into the elevator and seeing that when you're in the elevator, like the cool guys, like the guys that look, it's not that all the guys aren't cool, like Ricky Nielsen and Bunny Carlos, but it's like, Robin Zander and Tom Peterson were in the freaking elevator. And I'm like, okay, what do I do now?
Right.
It's like I'm wearing a Cheap Trick shirt, and it's like, can you sign this, please?
Yeah, exactly.
So they signed my shirt. So here I am.
Did you fanboy out on them?
Well, I mean, I was 15 years old.
Yeah, so yeah.
I didn't really, I'm kind of like coming into my own there.
Right.
I was in a band. I was doing my thing, but it was early on, so it was kind of like, wow, this is kind of intimidating. And It was a very fancy hotel. Parker Meridian. It was not, Holiday Inn Express. It was not the Comfort Inn. It was, not the Red Roof Inn.
So this is what, about 78? 78-ish, 79-ish?
I'd have to look on and pinpoint the tour, but it was, it was a great one. They played Madison Square Garden that night.
Holy shit.
And that was the first time seeing them. So what ended up happening, I think they had they may have had the live album out, or I'm not sure. No, maybe.
Yeah,
not.
well, if they were playing the Garden, I'm sure the live album was out.
Yeah, so
they didn't really pop until that live record came out.
Yeah, so what happened after that is we went to Broadway, like where all the shows are.
Right.
So they have all these musical shows. So my uncle is a very well-known musical director and conductor, and he's had a career doing amazing shows. I mean, writing, being part of the producers. He wrote parts of that.
Oh wow.
Jerry Herman.
Yeah.
He he did Chorus Line. He did Evita. He worked with all kinds of very remarkable people. Marvin Hamlish, Ann Miller. I mean, I've met a number of these people, and through him. And so he was doing a Neil Simon play called "They're Playing Our Song" that was on Broadway for a period of time, in between Chorus Line and Phantom of the Opera and all these other things that he does. So his name is Larry Blank, by the way. And so I went to visit my Uncle Larry, and because he was there at the show, and I told Vinny, hey, my uncle's doing the show. Let's just go say hi. So he knew people there. So we walk into the backstage area. It's not exactly like a warm and fuzzy green room. It's kind of like, the back of like an auditorium kind of thing in Broadway. It's like there's
nothing there.
Come on in and get on stage and do your thing.
Right.
And work. So afterwards, I get off there, and Tim Curry and his wife were there.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like, that's after Rocky Horror. So I'm like, wow, this is a trip. So I met Tim Curry, and his wife was really, really friendly. And this was really weird because I was like 15 years old.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, what is going on here? This is really weird. It's like, this was an experience. And we're walking through the streets of New York. We got to go here. We got to go there. We're at Madison Square Garden down by 34th. Then we're up by, Times Square, up by the theater district, 48th, 40, whatever, in the 40s. So what ends up happening is we take a cab because Vinny got the tip off that, hey, they're all going to this restaurant, Sardi's. This is like the place where everyone goes afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like the people that are to be seen. So we were there. I'm standing by the curb with Vinny. He's there with his camera, ready to go. And a limo pulls up. And guess who gets out of the limo? Good guess. But not quite.
I was trying to think of something clever.
Brooke Shields.
Okay.
And I was 15 years old.
And she was probably 15 around that time.
And there was an ad on TV.
Right.
And there was like ads on the bus places, like the billboards. And it says, it had a picture of her with like no top on or something. She's wearing jeans. And, of course, she's covered with hair. Right. But you don't see, like, anything, she's not wearing anything. Pretty sexy. And she was about my age, maybe 16 or something. So she got out of the limo, and the first thing came to my mind to say to her is, "Hi, Brooke. What's between you and your Calvins?"
And how did that go over?
Her mom got out of the limo next and said, "Me."
That, my friend.
Yeah. Kind of blew my buzzkill. Blew my buzz right there. I was like on a roll. I was thinking like, hey, maybe I can get do like some, was it Paradise, whatever that movie was, maybe
what the fuck was that movie? It was oh my god. I can just picture her boobies in that movie.
I was trying to get a date with Brooke Shields, and it got shut down by
her
mom.
mom. You got cock blocked. You got cock blocked by her mom.
That's right.
Damn you, Mama.
At least
Shields.
I tried, man. I went up to the batter's box. We tried. We swung. We struck out, but we tried hard.
You don't know if you don't ask.
Yeah, you got to go for it, man.
Exactly.
That's what I learned. I'd do it again if I had the
duh.
opportunity.
Absolutely. How old were actually? This is kind of tying it into the Anthrax thing just a little bit. Where? At what point did you hear Metallica?
Sure.
And let me preface that. I mean, were you in Anthrax at the time, or did Anthrax come after that?
Yeah, I was in Anthrax, and at that moment in time, I was in the band, 1982,
right?
Summertime, 1982, 83, 84. I left the band at the end of summer in August of 1984. It was a very hard time for me because it was never. It was just like nothing was easy in that band.
Okay.
And the reason for is dealing with the type of individuals I was dealing with, which they weren't. There's some bands out there that just have a great chemistry and they work together and they're like a family.
Right.
They have teamwork. They have camaraderie. This was more of a situation of, extreme predatory narcissism and jealousy to a level of shooting. It's like biting off your own nose to spite your own face, or shooting your own self in the foot. In other words, why not everybody work together to help each other? But it was not that. It was about, okay, well, people are paying attention to this band at this show. Well, I want to get the attention of these girls over here, so let's push these other guys over there, kind of thing. So it was more that type of thing that was directed at me, instead of, hey, let's all work together and be a team, and like a team that's trying to win together. So that was kind of the battle, uphill battle that it was. And the problem was any kind of, attention that I received, I didn't understand, because I didn't understand what an overt narcissist or a covert narcissist was at that time. And this was, there's words for describing that, but we're talking predatory narcissist. Completely. And, it wasn't a situation where you could easily work through. And unfortunately, I hung in there. I tried to hang on. Other people fell off. The guitar player, Greg Walls, he bailed. Greg D'Angelo played with White Lion.
Right. Yeah.
Played with Stephen Piercy. Played with a bunch of other folks.
I didn't realize...
with Zach Wilde he played with.
I didn't realize he was in Anthrax.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was, so we came together, and then it became a real band, because when I joined the band, there was a bunch of these kids, like they had, they didn't really have like they were using Scott's brother, Jason. Like, he says, Jason, you're a singer now. Go sing. Like, they did a show, and at the North Stage Theater, and before that, I think they were playing in the church. So it's or they played my father's place. Like, they did like one or two shows, but it was all covers.
Right.
So they really weren't like a serious band. They were trying to be, and trying to get T-shirts printed, and trying to like, the guy had all this money. So I mean, I don't know where it was coming from. His father had a cigarette boat and jewelry business, and who knows where the money came from, but all I know is that they were living in some fancy place in Bay Terrace, and I would go over there, and there was a lot of weirdness. It was like bullying and stuff like that. Right. And it's like, I never had the opportunity to the communication. It's like, you're asking me a question about Metallica and how that came to be. So I mentioned this because what happened is Scott had this money, so he had this car, and he was the guy who would drive to, New Jersey. So he'd take us all the way out. This is like an hour and a half drive, and if there's traffic, it's more like 2 hours or more. Going over bridges, George Washington Bridge, going all the way out there to New Jersey from Queens. So we would go out there, and he would go out there because he would be out like, let's leave Neil here and we'll just go out there. Like, he was trying to work the relationship. So he went out there, and Johnny Z had a flea market. So he was like a little booth at a flea market. So he had these record albums that were cool and picture discs at the time, and he had Kerrang! Magazine, and a bunch of other, Sounds Magazine, other and NME, European magazines. So we would go out there, and it was like, holy crap! It was like a kid in the candy store.
Right.
So he'd come back with like $500, $700 worth of stuff. He would buy that much. I would wish that I could buy a Kerrang! Magazine
right.
for $8.
Right.
Because that's what it would cost. It was an imported magazine.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
And $8 was a lot of money back
then. It was a lot. Still a lot of fucking money to me right now.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of money.
But yeah. I know what you mean.
I mean, for $8, and I'm just breaking it down. It's like, well, $8 for $4. Then you could get like fried rice, chicken fried rice or something.
Yeah.
Or shrimp fried rice. I mean, back in those days, or you can get beer, or you can get I mean, I was 15, but hey, actually at that time I was older than that. I was 18 or 19, somewhere in that neighborhood. 19 years old, I think. So it's like, okay, well, I can get beer, or I can get some food, or I can buy a Kerrang magazine,
Right.
and be broke.
Right.
So it's kind of like Scott bought all the records, he bought all the magazines, and it was like he positioned it. You know, who knew that that's what was going on? That he was positioning himself on a political level when, you know, all I was trying to do is be a creative artist and
Right.
write music and be part of it. So I was hanging out with you know, Metallica, and we did quite a few shows together. We hung out quite a bit. We shared the same rehearsal build.
See, I've heard that story.
Yeah,
I've heard those
spent
stories.
a lot of time with those guys. And, you know, I spent a lot of time. I really liked Cliff Burton. I liked him because he was really down to earth. He didn't have like any kind of, you know, toot or ego. He was just really like, he reminded me of like a guy from like a Southern rock band.
Gotcha.
He was that kind of guy, but he was, you know, he had an edge to him.
Right.
He was from the Bay Area, so he's kind of like, you know, don't fuck with me. And he would hit you, but he was more relaxed. He was more like
Right.
cool, but really professional. Like really, you know, obviously people love him. I mean, he's a great, you know, innovator. But I really liked him. I mean, we connected. You know, it was just really cool. And I always, you know, always remember Cliff and love the guy. And I was there when Dave Mustaine was let go.
Oh wow.
And I know more stuff that I saw. And also James and even Lars. And it's like, I remember the time where, you know, Lars, he was just playing, and it was like, I don't know what song he was playing, but I was listening to the song they were playing. He was like playing a different song on the drums. It was just, and he had all this green tape all over his drumsticks. But Lars was just, you know, very passionate. He had a lot of love for heavy metal, and he was a wizard, you know, a genius when it comes to, you know, knowing about all these bands that he was into, and Diamond Head, and
Right.
you know, all of these, you know, new wave of British heavy metal bands. He knew all of the stuff, and he went to school. I mean, he was in Denmark, and he was in San Francisco, and he, you know, could have done tennis. And he was just really a very bright and brilliant person, and also, you know, very passionate about heavy metal. And you know, even though he wasn't like the most technically, you know, precise drummer at that moment,
Right.
even his timing, but he got better. And, you know, he was doing the double bass. It's like it almost reminds me of like someone who's trying to, you know, run Top Fuel at the drag strip, and, you know, run a 300-mile-an-hour car, and
Right.
like they don't know how to use a stick shift. It's like what are you doing, dude? But you know what? I mean, he's playing great, and, you know, he grew into those boots, which are some big boots to fill. And Metallica became, you know, the great band they are. But they were a great band when they started, too.
Right. Right.
Even with a few little hiccups here and there. But I mean, I think my band that I was in had more hiccups than Metallica. Metallica had something special. There was a chemistry. It was something special. And I think that had to do with the songwriting and the direction. I think Lars provided the direction and some of the songwriting. I think James and Dave Mustaine, you know, that team was fierce. You know, they had some cool shit.
Yes. I guess where I was going with it was, what direction was Anthrax going before you guys heard Metallica, and did that have any impact on where you guys ended up wanting to go?
I think it had impact on the other guys to a large extent, because they were, you know, when it came to Scott and Dan Looker, I think they wanted to be Metallica.
Okay.
I think they really wanted to copy them, because they were copying Iron Maiden before that.
Okay.
So they took kind of a paradigm shift to go in the Metallica direction. But my different direction was that I thought, you know, I love Metallica's riffs, but I thought mumbling was just not for me.
Okay.
I mean, I thought that they were like, blah, 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 you know, a little too mumbly. Like Dave Mustaine's music, a little too mumbly. Slayer, a little too mumbly. I mean, there wasn't like, it's like singers and mumblers.
Right.
And I'm not trying to put them down. I love those bands.
I know.
But, you know, let's just face it. You know, when you got a guy like Dio out there, you got a guy like, you know, Glenn Hughes and Paul Rogers and Rob Halford and, you know,
Dickinson. I mean,
Dickinson. But I'm talking back when.
Right.
You know, so was Paul Di'Anno back then. I love Paul Di'Anno. It was more street, you know.
Right.
And I love Bruce Dickinson. And, but back then, it was really, you know, Bruce Dickinson was in Samson, which is another great band.
Mm-hmm.
But in those days, it was like, you know, you had singers that were amazing. You know, Lou Gramm and
Fucking
you know,
Robin
Brad-
Zander, Paul
Brad
Stanley.
Delp. Yeah. I mean, we can just go on for
Right.
hours. And then you had like Lemmy, you know, so it's
Yeah.
like the guy had a sore throat. You know, I love Lemmy, but it's like some of the guys in the band, they love Lemmy, and it's like, I love Lemmy too, but I don't want to sing like Lemmy.
Right.
That's what we're talking about. Not that he wasn't the coolest guy ever, because when I met Lemmy in New York, he was totally amazing. And I met him again in LA, and it's like, these were not set up meetings. This was just
Right.
kind of happenstance.
Randomly. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And he was just about the coolest person in the whole industry that I could ever think of, that, you know, was so approachable, and, you know, what a remarkable human, you know, just someone who, not to over glorify someone who passed away and just try to, you know, throw praise on him. But here's a guy who, you know, he'd make you feel like you're somebody, like just because he's somebody, he didn't make you feel less of who you were.
Right.
And he really, you know, was warm and intelligent and friendly, and wow, what a, you know, like whatever he had, the warmth and just the approachability.
Right.
They should reproduce that and
Get
more people to
It's
be
the
like that.
blueprint.
Yeah,
Lemmy was the blueprint.
Yeah, he was.
You know?
I mean, I like Dio, and Dio's awesome, and I like Dimebag, and I never met Dimebag, but I respect him, but I think there becomes this thing where, you know, I don't know what it is, but it's like when people pass, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to, you know, we got to carry on.
Right.
And, you know, some people, they don't get to be here a long time, like Randy Rhoads, or people like Otis Redding, you know, people like, you know, Buddy Holly. I mean, there's people that just, but they leave their imprint, and they leave their,
I mean, look at my leg.
yeah, Elvis.
King of rock and roll. I mean, fuck.
I mean, they leave their impression on people. And to me, you know, someone like Otis Redding, I mean, Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah,
Hendrix died, was he 27?
Yeah, 27. He's part of the 27 Club. Him and Joplin and Cobain. Yeah.
And just the idea of the body of work that he left, the amount of albums that they put out, but just, you know, the thing about Hendrix, and I was listening to him today, is that not only just an amazing songwriter, but the message that he's got. I think, you know, it's interesting that Lemmy told me that he was the roadie for Hendrix, and also for Keith Emerson, who I had the pleasure of you know, knowing and going to dinner with and going to meet him again. And, you know, there was this time that I was hanging out with Glenn Hughes. We were friends, and we'd hang out like for a couple of years. This is back in the 90s. And that's the Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And Black Country Communion and so on. So it was interesting. Glenn had this green Mustang convertible. So we're driving Palos Verdes, where he used to live. I think he's in Malibu now. Married now. But this back when he was single, in between marriages. And so we were driving over the hill, I guess, in Palos Verdes. And we had Keith Emerson in the car. So Keith was sitting in shot. He was riding shotgun up front. And then Glenn Hughes was driving, and I'm in the back. We're going to this Chinese restaurant over in Palos Verdes. There's only one big one there. That's like, you know, the one that's over the hill, where there used to be. So this is at the time when like these Razor phones were coming out. These little, that was like the cool phone. It was like on a necklace or something. It was like a chain.
I remember those.
So Keith had one of these things. So Keith, he turns to me, he says, "Hey, I heard you know about this kind of stuff, this technology stuff." He hands me his Razor phone. He says, "Could you help me program a number?" Like, can you help me use this thing? I have no idea how it works. It's one of those flip phones. It's the first one. This, when they got small. A little smaller than the big old bricks.
Yeah, than the Zach Morris.
Yeah. So I'm thinking to myself, I had a flashback at that moment, and I had a flashback to the moment where I had this, was it the Emerson, Lake and Palmer trilogy? Is it trilogy or?
Couldn't tell you.
It had like an eagle on the cover. Brown has like this white eagle, and it has Lucky Man on it and all that. My cousin gave me that album when I was 13 years old. I mean, I remember the day that he gave me that album, and it, like, wow, you know, progressive, and it just changed my world, being introduced to that and record albums. And you know, I was 13, so I couldn't really, you know, buy a whole lot at that point. So I'm sitting in the car with Keith Emerson and Glenn Hughes, and it's like, okay, so it just kind of hit me for a second, and then I'm like, wait a second, he's asking me how to program his phone. I said, Keith, aren't you the guy who wrote Brain Salad Surgery? And you're asking me to program your phone. So I was just like, okay. I said, okay, well, here you go.
Right.
So I programmed his phone numbers for him. And, it was kind of funny. Then we went to eat some Chinese food. And, we hung out at the King's Head in Santa Monica. We'd go there. And actually, we go there with, I remember one Sunday we were there with Glenn and Keith and his wife or girlfriend, very beautiful lady, and there was also Lawrence Tolhurst from The Cure, another English lad, as they say.
Right.
So all these Englishmen, it's like all these like English rockers, man, and like the dude from Queens in Brooklyn, like I'm like, what am I like? It was just kind of odd, because I'm like from the next generation.
Right.
They were the older guys.
Yeah.
And then there was also Claude Schnell from Dio, because I played with Claude for 4 years. So we had, we were working on his solo project for 4 years, doing his music. Very much reminiscent of Elton John meets Meatloaf. Never got off the ground with me, but very fantastic music. Love singing it. It was all him on a Steinway piano and me vocals, and that was it. We did that for 4 years, rehearsing 5 days a week. So it got kind of old after 4 years. So I figured,
right.
Hey man, we got to do something here. But anyway, we'd be at the King's Head English pub in Santa Monica, and we went there a few times, and it was kind of cool because it was like we'd go there and it's almost like a ritual. We get together,
right?
And I just can't stop thinking like, hey, here I am with these English rock guys. I mean, all we need is like Eric Clapton to stop in, and Mick Jagger, and then
right.
And Paul McCartney, and who else is left? I mean, what, Elton John? I mean, what? How many more guys do you need here? It's like it's like the Hall of Fame.
Right. It almost be like your version of the fucking Alice Cooper's Hollywood Vampires.
Yeah.
And his little drinking club,
Yeah, it was that. It was totally that. And this was back in like 1998, 99 time frame. And then I saw Glenn recently when he was doing California Breed. And I said, Glenn, what happened? We were hanging out all the time, and I figured, because he got remarried, and, things change, people change.
Yep.
So he said to me that he was maybe not a good boy at that time. So when I knew him, maybe he fell off the wagon a little bit. And, I said, man, how's your friend? You could have told me that,
Yeah.
I'm in your corner, man. But, it's neither here nor there. But,
right.
But I just thought I'd tell you the story about, the experience of just hanging out with all these Englishmen, because
that's amazing.
It was totally cool. It's cool to go to an English club with Englishmen,
right?
Because then you're like, it's like going to Disneyland with the Disneys,
True.
It's kind of like that experience. It's a little bit different when you, it's like if you went to the, what is it, Magic Mountain with Kiss,
Yeah.
It would be that experience. Like, well,
Star Child.
Well, we own the place, yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh my God, that's funny.
Like you're living in deja vu.
Right, exactly. We're going to take a short little break, and for a minute, and we'll be right back. Neil Turbin on another fucking podcast.
If you need to promote your band or business, or just want to stylize, personalize, or customize your ride, check out vid-decals.com. Want to create and customize your own stickers representing your band, or make your own bumper sticker? Vid Decals can do it. All stickers are printed on quality vinyl and can be placed on any flat surface. Stickers are an affordable way to promote your band or business. Go to vid-decals.com to get started. That's vid-decals.com. vid-decals.com.
RockstarLeatherworks.com is your home for badass rock and roll gear. Featuring 100% handmade leather bands, watches, cuffs, bracelets, and more, Rockstar Leatherworks has something for everybody. Whether you are going to the show or you are in it, you can find something to fit your needs. Choose from a variety of designs or create your own masterpiece. Their bands and watches are second to none. They also ship internationally. Who needs a stage to be a rock star? Check out RockstarLeatherworks.com. All right, and we have returned. It's another fucking podcast. I got Neil Turbin in studio telling some amazing fucking stories. Make sure you check out AMP Productions on Facebook. You'll find the link on all of my links. They are going to be doing, and I'm waiting for it to actually show up, they do like laser engraving and all this shit. So you are going to be able to get in another fucking podcast, another effing podcast, Zippo, maybe shot glasses. I don't know, fun stuff like that. Anything that we could fucking laser print this logo on, you'll be able to buy. And then we'll get some t-shirts rolling too at some point. So, back with Neil Turbin. Welcome back after that minute of being gone.
Wow. Felt like we were gone. Now
I know. Well, that minute was longer than it takes me to have sex. But, and longer than it takes me to get shot down as well. Wait, thank you, Pat Fontaine.
Yeah.
I have to give myself one of those every once in a while because I make myself laugh. Probably the only person that laughs at my jokes anyways. But we were talking about the influence that that Metallica had on Anthrax at that time.
Yeah, so I was there, Izzy, and we were at the Paramount Theater, and I was there at that show where Venom was headlining, and I was also there at a show where Vandenberg played. So Metallica was opening up for these bands, and I was there at the show when they opened up for Venom, and that's kind of I think the last show that Dave Mustaine played.
Okay.
So there was a situation that happened with me and Dave Mustaine at that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it something you're able to talk about, or is it?
I don't know if I want to.
No, I understand.
I understand. Let it out there right now, but it was something that was quite a interesting story. But I was at that show, and what's interesting is that the management company, which became Craze Management, which was Johnny Z and this other person, they were involved with that show. So that's kind of how that started coming about, through production of that. And then there was also a show they did in New York. It was Headbangers something or other. It was like on Halloween, and it was Raven, Anvil, and Riot.
Anvil!
Yeah.
Lips has been on the show.
Yeah, so Lips, I love him.
I love him too.
And I did a show in Headbangers Open Air in 2014 with Anvil. So we'd play over in Germany, North Germany, with those guys, and it was really cool to catch up to them because I saw those guys when I was 18
right?
years old in some bar in upstate New York, and then I met them again at Johnny Z's flea market, and then Anvil we ran into, and of course they're from Canada, but
right,
but they were playing the circuit.
Let me ask you this before we move on. When you watch the movie for the first time, what's going through your head? It's like, I actually, knowing these guys and seeing them back in the day.
I was there before the movie, before the days.
Well, right, exactly.
I was there at the early days.
Exactly. So that's why I want to know what's going through your head as you're watching.
There's a lot of days that went by before that movie, so I was really on the front end of that. So, yeah, Lips was out there doing the vibrator on the guitar thing, and he was doing all that stuff, and metal on metal. They were kind of not the most melodic band. They were the heavy metal guys, and they were hard-working guys. And, I saw that, and it much reminded me of the days when I would go see Twisted Sister at Beggar's Opera or go see them at Hammerheads. I mean, I used to go see Twisted Sister before they were, this big band. So that's my background. I mean, there was another thing that I wanted to mention about Metallica is there was this time where I'm in the van with Greg D'Angelo. He had this white van. I mean, Greg had all these cars. I mean, he was just sick. He had a Stingray Corvette, blue, beautiful. He had, I guess his family had a few bucks. And then he had this Shelby, this green, Shelby Mustang. It was I don't know if it was a 427 or whatever it was. It was man, these cars were insane. So we're in this, one of the vehicles he had was this big old van, big old Ford Econoline van.
Right.
So we're in this van with Metallica and Anthrax. So it was me and Dave Mustaine. No, was it Dave? I think, no, Dave wasn't in that one. That's when Kirk was in the van. But Cliff was in the van. And I was sitting right next to him. And it was holy crap. We were sitting there, and we got pulled over by the cops. And we just, they bought beers, and we were drinking beers in the van.
Right.
On Queens Boulevard. And we're sitting there in the van, and I'm looking at Cliff. I never told this story. So I'm looking at Cliff, and I'm like, dude, you better hide your beer. He says, no, I don't care. I don't fucking care. He didn't care. He just did not care.
Right.
Cliff didn't care. So he just sat there with the beer, and I'm like, you know what, Cliff? I respect you for that. And I put my beer in the bag, and I put all the other beers in the fucking bag, and I said, dude, you want to give me your beer now? But he didn't care. And I love that about Cliff. And it's like that's he's got some balls because, I mean, you know, you don't want to get in trouble and get like a drinking summons and
Right.
drunk in public or any of that when you're trying to like play in a rock band. And, you know, if you want to like tour, leave the country or go somewhere, it doesn't help if you got a court appearance and, you know, you got like the hanging judge, you know, it don't help. And, you know, we were all rock and roller guys with long hair and,
Yeah.
you know, leathers and chains and
Well, isn't that the
bullet belts and things.
Isn't that the attitude that we're supposed to purvey? We're supposed to have as a fucking quote unquote rock and roll or metal guy that we don't fucking care.
Well, what's funny is that you're right, and what's funny is that time, Anthrax and Metallica. I mean, let's just put it this way: Anthrax before Johnny Z. The band had a photograph. Like we took a photograph. It was a bad photograph of the band with their bullet belts and so forth. And we had it in like some not even a record store. It was like this clothing store in the East Village. It was called Flip, or right next to it. There was there was Flip, which had these leather jackets, and they had us like in the window. It was like the photograph, and they taped it into the window. And Scott was all like, yeah, you know, really proud of that. Like the band was really proud. People walk down 8th Street and they look at this photograph that's in the window of the store. Well, you know, a lot of people go up there and they're rock and roll people. So that's how they got to find out about Anthrax.
Right.
But people didn't know who the fuck Anthrax was back then. And they didn't even know who the hell Metallica was unless they were, you know, at a show or something. I mean, it wasn't like we had internet or MTV.
Yeah, that was
MTV
the tape trading days.
Yeah, nobody knew unless you had Kerrang or, you know, Metallica was starting to get the buzz. They were in the underground magazines. They were getting out there. And this is before they were doing their U.S. tour. This is before all that. So they came from, you know, California, and they came over to New York. So, I mean, that was the beginning. So I was there for that whole experience. And I was there after they did their tour, and they came back, and they were there. And that's when they were in the music building more.
Right.
And living at Johnny Z's and all
this. Yeah.
So it was, you know, quite an experience. And what I remember is that, you know, I remember when Kirk first came over, and he was kind of a little green, you know, a little bit like he was in Exodus, but it was a big change, I thought, from Dave Mustaine, who I thought was, you know, great guitar player, but kind of angry guy. You know, he was just like an angry drunk kind of guy. Yeah,
well, it kind of fit what they were doing, though.
Yeah.
You know?
They were a different band, I thought. A little bit different. They kind of, you know, I thought like, they were still a kick-ass heavy band, but I thought it was kind of like Metallica light compared to...
Yeah, it was more polished.
The Dave Mustaine version was more like... I just couldn't believe the songwriting and the you know... But it didn't last long. I didn't get to see much of it. It's like... It was like... you know, I was around it all the time, but then...
Yeah, so I mean, you were basically there when...
5 nights a week.
Yeah, so you were there when Dave got shipped out, then fucking Kirk's there the next day pretty much, right?
Yeah, the thing about it is that... The thing about Anthrax is that, I mean, these were not the most creative people I've ever worked with. And the thing was that when I say that, I'm not trying to, you know, demean them.
I understand.
I'm saying that in a capacity of, we had like 7 songs or 8 songs plus a cover or 2. And we played the same 7 songs 5 nights a week over and over again. And they weren't getting any better. It's kind of like people think, you know, practice makes perfect, right?
Right.
But practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Right.
So if you're practicing the wrong shit over and over and over and over and over again, you'll be great at doing it not perfect. So I think that the creativity within that band, that wasn't like I was mentioning about Lars, like certain areas he was really strong in, like his business mentality and just his whole vision and his you know, enthusiasm and his passion. I think, you know, he was really strong and creativity, you know, maybe as a technical person, maybe that wasn't his strongest area. With Anthrax, I would say that, you know, creativity, that was definitely not the strong area at that point.
Right.
And not that it wasn't for me, but all my writing was done outside from the band. I never wrote with the band. I'd take like, here's a riff. Here you go. And I'd come back and I'd say, okay, well, we need to take this riff and combine it with this riff or do something. Like I was putting the arrangements together. So I did a lot of the arrangements for the first album just because here's where the vocals seem to fit. Here's where it seems to go. And there was a lot of resistance. And by the time, I was writing Armed and Dangerous and Gung Ho and Raise Hell, they were trying to push me in a direction which was more like they wanted to go hardcore punk. And I had already been part of the punk scene.
Right.
I already, was checking out, all those punk bands. I already was part of that scene in New York. I worked at Max's. I worked at the Ritz. I seen all the punks, I was there working at the Ritz when UK Squeeze was UK Squeeze, not just Squeeze.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I was there, with all the Neon Leon from New York. Probably didn't. He used to do a commercial on WPLJ in New York. I mean, really cool stuff. Von Elmo. I mean, Blondie was a waitress at Max's. Deborah Harry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was before my time. But I mean,
right.
She would come in. I mean, Max's
God,
was
she
a place.
was so fucking hot.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it was just, I came from that place.
Yeah.
And then I was buddies with Rhett Forrester from Riot. I was a big Guy Speranza fan, but I became, pretty good friends with Rhett. And, he tried to help us get a guitar player. So that's a whole nother conversation. But, telling you a little bit about where we are today, I think that's important since we didn't talk about that at all.
Well,
but
no, we're
Death
getting
Riders,
there.
Death Riders,
we're getting there. Yeah.
I'm jumping forward, but it's like, yeah, I got Metallica stories. And, Metallica, I think they were a huge influence. But the thing I didn't mention that I was alluding to earlier is that, the other guys were very influenced by Metallica.
Right.
And I thought Metallica was excellent. And I loved their riffing, and I loved, that element. And I loved the sing-along type stuff, seek and search and seek and destroy and all that.
Yeah.
But I think that, hit the lights, and for me, nothing would ever top seeing, Rob Halford at the pier when they weren't doing the concerts at Central Park anymore, but they did it on the pier on the west side on 10th Street or whatever it was. And it was the last show of the tour, Point of Entry tour.
Okay.
And they were doing all the Hell Bent for Leather stuff. And this is before British Steel, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was Point of Entry. And then they did, or I'm trying to get Hell Bent for Leather, which blew me away when I heard that album. I was like, okay. Because these guys from this band that I was auditioning for, I was auditioning like Montrose and Thin Lizzy back when I was like 14 years old.
Right.
A little bit too green to be in a band. And I was kind of like in over my head. And then they played me some Judas Priest. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm just trying to sing like
Get on my bad motor scooter and ride.
Robin Zander type vocals
yeah.
out of my throat. And it's like all of a sudden, if you got like Halford, okay. So anyway, it was like, okay. So I saw Halford and Priest, and you had KK with his V up in the air.
Yep.
And these guys are at that last show at the pier in New York. They were taking their belts, throwing them into the audience, their vests, throwing them. They were giving their clothes, and these weren't cheap, and they weren't easy to get back then. And I'm like, I want to go again next year. Maybe I can get closer and get some cool belts.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, holy shit.
I need stage clothes. Let's go to the pre-show.
I never saw anything like that. I was just like, the band was amazing. It was an unbelievable. I mean, I don't even know if it's on video. That would be a show to try to see if it's even on video somewhere. But that was incredible. I was just floored by it when they played, the last show, Point of Entry on the pier in New York. So that left an impression as one of the most impressive shows I've ever seen. That was one of them. Unbelievable. And the songs,
right?
Desert Plains and Sinner and The Ripper and
right.
Victim of Changes. I mean, all those songs plus Hot Rockin' and all this kind of stuff. It was just like, wow. Headed out to the highway. I mean, they were just killing it to the extreme. So I saw him again. I saw him again more than once. One of the things I went with Scott one time. We saw Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, and Screaming for Vengeance. And then got
holy shit. That was one tour.
And yeah. And
holy fuck.
And I'm thinking Great White was on a pre-show. I'm not sure if that was that one. It might have been another one. I think it was a later one. And I met the manager who eventually managed Guns N' Roses, not the friendliest of guys. But yeah, because I met Gary Holland, who was the drummer for Great White back then. And then Halford, I met him, and he was a total gentleman, really classy guy, really cool. I was very impressed with Halford, and we were hanging out. We went after the show, we went to the Limelight, and we were hanging out with KK and Glenn, and and then years later in California, after I moved out here, Lucy Forbes, who was this lady who was taking me on many auditions, her girlfriend Kim, who died going over Laurel Canyon, like head-on collision.
Oh, wow.
She was KK's girlfriend.
Okay.
And so I remember going with Lucy and with Kim. We went to a Bon Jovi concert, and I'm trying to think who was opening. It was Bon Jovi and Rat. No, Bon Jovi was opening for Rat.
Oh, wow.
And we were there, and the power went out. And Bobby Blotzer did a drum solo for like 10 minutes. Or maybe that was the end of the show. I can't even remember, but I talked to him about that because I just saw him on New Year's this past New Year's. But it was like, I've known Bobby for a while. He was in the South Bay for a long time, so I'm in the South Bay. But so my current band's Death Riders. I've been doing that since around 2001.
Oh, wow. So it's been a while.
Yeah, and I've had a few lineups as far as live band, but I've been working with Jonas Hornqvist from Sweden. He's in Gothenburg area, Stenungsund, Sweden. And, we just have a really good chemistry. We've worked together over the years, writing. He's also with me in Bleed the Hunger. So we have, Bleed the Hunger, what happened is we're writing songs for Death Riders, and I would say that it's pretty hard and heavy, very, push tempos, fast BPMs,
right.
tempos, pushed, vocals are melodic but heavy. I don't know, who do we sound like? I don't really kind of go there. I just have a lot of influences. My influences range from, the metal folks that that are obvious, the punk folks that that are obvious, but also soul singers. I mean, I'm very much a soul singer. So I'm, some of my very big influences, and some of the people that I really love their music. I like Xander and the Peace Pirates out of Liverpool, UK. I also like this female singer who's amazing, and actually a couple of female singers. Her name is Lynn Jackaman. She's on tour with Brian Tissue and the Dead Daisies over there in the UK right now, and The Answer. She was in a band called St. Jude, excellent singer, just phenomenal. I also am a big fan of the band Thunder from the UK.
Fuck yeah, Thunder. I just know the one record, but...
Yeah, and I actually went to Wolverhampton to go see them play for Christmas a couple years
ago. Oh,
ago.
wow.
Because, it's like if you can't beat them, join them. They didn't come to the U.S., so I had to go over there. So I did. I went over there for a Christmas show, and it was amazing. And what was funny is that my uncle, I told you about earlier, Broadway uncle, right? He's doing all these shows.
Yeah.
Well, he was doing a BBC special. So I went over there, went to the BBC the night before, and then saw So I went to London, and, you had like the lady from, James Bond movie and like all these famous actors being part of the cast. And this was like a BBC Christmas special.
Oh, wow.
BBC 2.
So you're there.
And my uncle's like conducting and the musical director for the whole thing. I'm like, okay. And I met all these people. So I got my picture with, Miss M.
Bond, is it she won the Bond chicks?
Yeah, she's like the blonde lady.
Oh, okay.
The older blonde lady, the one that's kind of like the boss lady.
Gotcha. See, I never got into the Bond thing.
That's all right.
So, other than the Duran Duran song, which is awesome.
So I went to the BBC. Thunder played 2 nights, sold out in Wolverhampton. I wanted to go to the first one, but I knew I had to go to this BBC thing to see my uncle. So I went to that. That's when it was happening. So it was cool. Then the next night was Thunder, and we had to go all the way to Wolverhampton. I was going from London, so it was like the train. And, when it rains over there in the UK, it's just like, if the wind blows, they stop running the train because it's like, it's a big crisis. If the rain goes sideways, it's like they can't, the things fall off or something. Right. It's like, come on, guys, just keep the train going. Like New York City, man, the train just keeps rolling.
Yep.
They don't mess around. But anyway, I eventually made it to the concert. Rain, sleet, and snow, and man, Thunder was awesome. It was one of the greatest experiences seeing that band, and never forget. Another one of those shows that I'll never forget, like the Judas Priest show.
Right.
And there's more, but with that Thunder show, their songwriting, the performances. Danny Bowes, Luke Morley. All the guys in that band. I just love their music. Very good band. And they have a lot of different albums, a lot of great albums. And they were very smart. They put a lot of singles out, like EPs. And I remember someone telling me the story who knew the drummer from Humble Pie. What's his name? Jerry. I'm trying to think, but I guess I better keep trying.
I could Google it, but that'd be too easy.
That's cheating. So anyway, the drummer from Humble Pie. So someone was telling me the story, and what Humble Pie did is they would put out albums, like LPs.
Right.
It was an LP, long play.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have to. They were too cool to put out EPs or short little singles. They didn't want to do singles. They want to put out albums. So that's the kind of thing that hurt them down the road. They didn't put out singles. You know, band like Thunder, you look up how many album covers they got, how many singles. It's like you'll see 30, 40 different things that they can sell. So, yeah, that hurt Humble Pie, I'm pretty sure. You know, they had a few albums. There was no singles.
You know, I mean, looking at the industry now, it's like that's kind of where it is right now. It's like
back to the old days.
It is. It's back to the old days.
Back to the old cover bands.
Yeah.
Tribute bands, whatever.
Hey, I'm in a tribute band, easy.
Hey, that's right. You are, aren't you?
I am.
Ack.
Tribute
I jammed with you guys.
Yes, you did.
That was cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
When's the next one?
I don't know yet.
Let's do it.
I know.
Let's rock it.
Fuck yeah.
Call Ace.
I wish. He
was Ace Von Johnson.
Ace Von Johnson, yes.
Not the other Ace. Other Ace is cool. I met him once.
I have not.
I did see Kiss in 77.
Oh.
78.
The
At
Garden?
Madison Square Garden.
Oh,
Kiss
my
Alive
God.
too. That was another one of those shows, by the way.
My God.
You can't forget that.
No, especially being a New Yorker, seeing a New York band headlining Madison Square Garden that's sold out to the fucking Raptors.
Well, and they're blowing shit up.
Yeah.
And they're doing flames. Before it was an act of terrorism, you know, it was cool to go see a concert.
Yeah.
They were doing this. No one was dying at a concert. It was beautiful. Yeah. It was amazing. It was a real show. And, you know, you got to give the props and the credit to Kiss because they put on a hell of a show. And they had cool songs.
Yeah.
And that was the time for them. That was really their time to shine. It was unbelievable. I was just like blown away.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, like, now where is that concert shirt that I had from the Kiss Alive 2 show? Because I want that motherfucker.
Right.
Where is it? It won't fit, but that's all right.
Just you put it on the wall and go, yeah, there it is. Okay, time to hit Atkins.
That was
maybe I'll get into it again.
That was amazing.
You know?
Yeah, so Death Riders, I mean, we're recording an album. It's been a while because, you know, there's been some trials and tribulations, as they say, but, you know, you do what you got to do. You keep on keeping on. That's what we got to do. But, you know, we keep on playing. We keep on doing it. And I got Matt Thompson from King Diamond's band.
Oh, wow.
He's playing drums on the album. And he did a phenomenal job. We're working through some stuff on the recording side. I have, you know, people that are excellent, you know, mixing engineers. Both Jared Kavitka, who worked on Iron Maiden albums. He worked on Jimmy Barnes and Neil Sean, and he's worked on, you know, all kinds of amazing, you know, Joe Bonamassa, like top charting albums, number 1, number 2, number 3 albums, not just top 10. So yeah, Jared is an amazing recording engineer and mixer, and also Jack Nobelin, who's over in Belgium, and he's also working with us on the album, and he's also an amazing recording engineer. So we're working with some top people that we're happy with, that are doing a fine job for us, and you know, we're just doing it the way we can do it at this point.
Right.
You know, it's not like the old days where you get everyone in the room. I mean, I've got a band that's over pretty much in North Europe, so most of the band is over in Sweden, near Gothenburg, and then I have a member of the band, Gert Nabor, who's over in Breda, Netherlands. So he's also in the band Highway Child. That's a band that's well known out of Netherlands. And, you know, Jonas comes from a band called Treasureland and Galileo. And he's also quite a master guitarist himself, you know, endorsing Fender for a number of years and, you know, doing lots of clinics over there and, you know, cool places in Norway and other nice places to go. And we also have 2 other guys that are fantastic that are playing with us that have joined on. Richard Sword, who's over in Gothenburg, and also Eric Lindquist, who's over in Sweden as well. And then I also have a solo band that's out of Mexico City. So under my name. So we've done a few tours over there.
How does the solo stuff differ from?
Well, I have a solo album that came out in 2003, and actually, I'd like to take that band in a different direction. But it's like give the people what they want. They want to hear certain stuff, then that's what they're going to hear. But we play, some of my solo stuff. We play some of Death Riders songs. We play some Fistful songs, some Armed and Dangerous songs. It's just a matter of what people want,
right?
How the show was sold,
well,
et cetera, et cetera. You got to have people at your show.
This is the thing. It's like people know your name from that, and they almost expect to hear it.
Well, there you have it. I mean, it'd be hard to have Geezer Butler playing a headline show and him not playing something from the Sabbath catalog.
Right, exactly.
And I'm not picking on him. I'm just saying.
I get it. I mean,
it's almost like a stigma. It's like if you're from Kiss and not play a Kiss song, and actually that's what Paul Stanley did. He's playing a bunch of soul tunes, right? And that's kind of what my background is. So I grew up with Motown. I grew up with Northern Soul.
Right.
I grew up with, bands that were like, you might laugh at this one, but like the Ronnie Dio and the Prophets.
I know all about, well, not all about, but I know about it. I have it. I own it. I
had people that I knew in the neighborhood in Queens that were part of the band. You ever hear that song, The Lion Sleeps Tonight?
Yeah.
Well, one of the guys that was in that band, he was like, yeah, man, you sing pretty good. Your band is doing okay. But he played in that band. You had guys like that were in these bands from the 50s. And it's like, those are the kind of bands to me that I think the music was what mattered.
Right.
And it wasn't the flamboyance. They had a certain style, of course.
Right.
But it was really about crafting, great songwriting and just being able to take something and being someone who's an innovator or creator. It's not like you're trying to do it, but it's just something that comes out that way. And and there's some people that really truly are creators or innovators. And then there's those that are very good at repackaging or copying.
Right.
And in some cases it's straight out copying.
Right.
But the thing that I realized at a certain point was like, I like Robin Zander. He's really cool. And I like, Rob Halford. He's really cool. And I like Dio. He's really cool. I like James Hetfield. He's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I never wanted to try to sound like any of these guys.
Right.
I did like Riot a lot. I did like Saxon a lot. Biff Byford, yeah. I really liked Saxon. And I really liked Accept. So that's where I was going earlier. I never actually made my point on that because I'm probably rambling a bit.
It happens.
But what happens is, I saw Accept. I mean, I saw Saxon, Crocus, AC/DC. I mean, it's a big stage.
Yeah.
Doing hardcore punk like the guys in Anthrax wanted to do, that didn't go along with what my musical direction was. I wanted to be on a stage like Accept, like Halford, like Dio. I was there for when they did Black and Blue at the Nassau Coliseum. I told Vinny Appice. So, it's like, that was crazy because I was like, I must have been 15 years old. And I was at this concert and it was like 78 or something. And yeah, I was born in 63, right? So 78. So I'm there at the Nassau Coliseum. I mean, my mom dropped me off. I mean,
right.
And picked me up. And picked me up at 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Because it was Black Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult. Godzilla. I mean, they had the whole Godzilla. And I don't know. The way they did that concert, we were toast after that. I mean, we were stoned and all kinds of stuff in that audience. I mean,
I can imagine.
And it wasn't legalized back then.
Right.
Like it is now in California.
Right.
But it's like, wow, that was something else. Because we were watching Black Sabbath and they started passing the stuff around. And I'm like, I wish they'd do this more often. But it was like unbelievable. I'm there and it's 1978. And I remember, being, at some place in Long Island and they were playing like Rainbow on the radio or something, or, Dio singing. And it's like, wow, this guy really has a very captivating voice. It really pulls you in. It really, very melodic, but very commanding. Very, very strong, very powerful, very, his charisma and his personality just comes blasting through the speakers,
right,
on a little radio.
Yep.
So in person, seeing these flames coming out of the stage like Kiss, and having these giant crosses that were like sideways or something, and having Dio there with his kind of like his eyebrows and his eyes, and he's like with his eyes raised up, looking at you. It's like, holy freaking crap, And this guy's just like singing amazing, and it was strong, and it was like, there's another one of those concerts, like the top level concerts. Like
right.
I've seen these concerts that were just like, holy crap. And if we want to go out of the concert genre, I mean, I saw David Bowie do the Elephant Man on Broadway.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't even get better than that. And I was in the audience standing next to Keith Richards and Patty Hansen. Keith's there with his leopard skin jacket, and he had a bottle of Jack in his pocket.
Of course
it's just
he
like,
did.
I'm just like, okay, so this is what being a rock star is. It's like, well, I don't think that's what I am. I think that's what Keith Richards is.
Right.
So I don't have any delusions about
right.
of grandeur. That's just not me. But I think, being part of, living the music and being part of the creativity and being immersed in it, I think that's a beautiful thing. It's something that is love based. It's about creating. It's about, appreciating great people. Like I was talking about, bands like Xander and the Peace Pirates. I'm buddies with Stu Xander, who's one of the brothers, and Lynn Jackman, excellent singer, really amazing. She co-wrote one of the Thunder songs, Black Water, really amazing. And that's one of my favorite albums on their last record. That was a studio record. And then also, of course, Thunder. But one of my absolute favorite singers, hands down. I've loved this singer since, 1984. He was in a band called Cold Chisel. They're a very big band. They actually have. He actually has 15 number one albums.
Holy shit!
In Australia, more than the Beatles.
Wow.
The number one, more number ones than anyone else. Jimmy Barnes, and he is just phenomenal singer. And what was amazing is I actually got to meet him at Lucky Strike when I was singing at Lucky Strike, and I actually asked him to sing with me because I met him, and then he's like, yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, he's a humble guy. And his son was there, and he was a drummer for his band, Jackie James Barnes, and some other friends were there also. And they were there doing their last record that is a phenomenal soul record. But what was cool is that Jimmy agreed to sing a song with me. It was a Deep Purple song. That's
right. That was that Soundcheck, wasn't it?
No, it was that.
Oh, it was that. Okay, it was at the previous one.
Yeah,
okay.
and he agreed to do it, but he actually didn't know the lyrics.
I think I was hosting that night. Because I remember you telling me something about this backstage, and then I forgot to say it when I got on the stage.
Yeah, and I was actually trying to explain this to, the production folks that were running the show, just to say, hey, this guy is like a big artist. I mean, he's a number one selling artist.
Right.
I mean, it's not like, every day you have someone like that walking into your,
right.
Jason Bonham walked in there. I
Really?
met Jason there. Yeah, I met Jason before. He's a great guy. And obviously legacy, drummer.
Yeah.
John Bonham's son. And
right.
of course, drummers for lots of my favorite bands. I mean,
right.
He played with Glenn Hughes. He played with
right.
Bad Company. He played, with so many people. Bonham, Zeppelin. I mean, keeps going.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to top that.
Sammy Hagar,
Yeah.
I mean,
Fuck yeah, Hagar. Yeah.
And it keeps going. I mean, he's got more than that. There's so many great bands, so many artists that he's played with. But yeah, so people walk in there, and so Jimmy Barnes walked in there, and I was like, "Hey, Jimmy, man, it's so great to meet you." And we took a picture, and we're talking, and I had a friend who had this charity, thing that he did, so I introduced him to him. And then I said, "Hey, you won't believe this." So I pulled out my phone, and I showed him. I pulled up my iPhone. I showed him like all of the albums I had on my phone on my iTunes, like his whole catalog. He looks at me. He's like, "You're a real fan, aren't you?"
Yeah, just a little bit.
I'm like, "Yeah, that's true, actually." But it was a great experience. I mean, meeting someone that you really appreciate, and I really appreciate his vocals because he's a guy that, one of his favorite singers is Wilson Pickett. So for me, you could spend all your time trying to emulate, I don't know, Avenged Sevenfold or whatever,
Right.
or someone that you like, Ace Frehley. But
That's just because I can't sing that well. That's why I have to do Ace songs.
come on. But Jimmy,
That's not a rip on Ace.
Jimmy, I think he would have been an excellent candidate for AC/DC. I think he could have done it. He as a vocalist, he could have done it. He might be. He's not really much older than the other guys. In fact, probably some of these other guys may be older than him. But it's not even about age. I mean, look at Glenn Hughes. I mean, what an amazing voice.
Right, exactly.
Age and voice, you know, they're somehow maybe not so much related. Jimmy Barnes could have done that deal. I think two other great candidates for that would have been Mark Storace from Crocus, kind of a obvious choice.
Yep, that name was thrown around, and
that's an obvious choice.
Yeah.
And you know what? It would have been cool just to hear the recording and let the
Right.
fans decide. But that's not the way it works.
Right, exactly.
And Angry Anderson. And actually, I was hoping to do a Rose Tattoo song one of these days, but I know that it would be a lot of fun. And Angry Anderson, I think Angry and Jimmy Barnes, Mark Storace, these all could have been singers for AC/DC, and there's other ones.
Yeah, that kid from Airborne.
Yeah, there's other ones, but I think those old school guys. I think to keep it general, what is it? The generation focus and keep
Right.
it kind of consistent.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you could put a 20-year-old kid in there, and if he's got a screechy voice, but I think someone that's sang like that for a long time. It'd just be cool to hear an album of
Right.
these guys singing with AC/DC. So
Right, yeah, for sure.
that would be fun. They could even do that. But you know what? I guess the money shot was Axl and
Yep.
AC/DC, so that's what happened. So, I don't know. I like the old days, and actually when I was with the lady at Lieber Krebs, I had like this unreleased album, AC/DC Live at the Atlantic Recording Studio. So I was listening.
Oh, wow.
I was listening to that before it was really pushed out. There was like a promo only copy,
Mm-hmm.
and AC/DC really wasn't like, they weren't huge back then. They were kind of like Thin Lizzy back in the 70s. They were kind of like trying to break it big, and they had a cool song, or they had a few cool songs. They just didn't like go over the top.
Right.
It was like Cheap Trick before the live album. It
Right.
was like they were pushing. Van Halen too. It was like all of a sudden,
Kiss before fucking Kiss Alive.
yeah.
So
those are very special times to remember those times and to, find some of the things that, where you were at that point in time.
Right.
But with Bleed the Hunger, that's my other band. With Jonas, we have songs that we were writing, and it's like, Jonas, this doesn't really sound like your band Treasureland, because it's a very progressive band.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of keyboards, and then it doesn't really sound like Death Riders. It's not like in the same, it's kind of more like, I don't know, maybe 70s sounding, like classic old school rock.
Okay.
So it's like, well, what are we going to do with this song? Well, it's not Treasureland. Okay. It's not progressive, like neoclassical progressive metal.
Right.
And it's not really like thrashing or, this driving Death Riders kind of sound. And Death Riders has mid-tempo. We have slow songs. I mean, it's not just fast, but it just didn't kind of fit in that. So it's like, well, what are we going to do? And then he kept hitting me with songs, and then one after the other. And I kept writing my part to them and collaborating with them on it. And we have a whole album of these amazing songs that are not Death Riders, no, not Treasureland, but they fit perfectly in a classic hard rock band, Bleed the Hunger. And we took a little time saying, well, what are we going to call this thing? It's like, well, I don't know. Let's call it this. Let's call it that. It was like we had a list. We kept going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's like, after a lot of thumb wrestling and neither of us winning,
Right.
with very painful, bloody thumbs, we're at the point where it's like, okay, well, this name, oh no, you don't like that. Jonas doesn't like this one. He doesn't like that one. Oh man, what are we going to do now? I mean, this is like months and months and months of, he doesn't like this one. He'll Bleed the Hunger. I like that one. It's like,
Good.
I said,
finally.
I said, you're fucking lying, aren't you? You're just saying that. Yeah. So that's what stuck. And, there's meaning to it as well. And, it's something that, we agreed that we need to push Death Riders out there first, but we have a great album of songs, and we're writing some more. He just sent me another idea we're working on, and we're getting the Death Rider stuff finished up, working on getting that recorded. Like, we're not doing it in a conventional manner, so it doesn't start off on this part over here and then end up over here. We're kind of doing different parts at different times. I'm also filming video for the singles of the album as well. So, I've got a couple done on my end. We're still working through that with the band.
Okay.
But I'm going to do another one because it's good to have that promo and also the visual.
Exactly.
So we're working on that. So I've done 2 really cool ones. Hopefully we'll be able to get those out at some point.
Cool.
We're doing what we can. We don't have, big corporations behind us. We don't have, the man helping us.
Right. Well, who does anymore?
It's kind of DIY to a large extent.
Yeah. But,
when it comes out, we'll be, our songs are solid, so we're thrilled to be doing that. And we're taking on the opportunities that we can take on. So we played in Denmark at Metal Magic Festival. I've played with Death Riders many festivals. I played a lot of festivals in Europe. We've played tried to play Rocklahoma. The stage blew away.
Oh, you were there that year.
That was just a blowout altogether.
Right.
But
how does this is still boggling my mind how Europe still gets it and the States really doesn't.
Well, I don't know if it's really Europe that gets it. I think there's a lot that's changed over in Europe. I think they have a passion for metal. They it's like the current generation in Europe, there's people that like metal. Here in the States, I think they've had stuff, social media down their throats and brains, and brain pan. It's just been shoved, between the mainstream media. When I was a kid, what people grew up on was a lot of different things. I had a lot of classical music shoved down my throat. Right. And, that's pretty mathematical. There's a lot of deep intellect with that kind of music. There's math going on. It's makes your brain work, and it's proven. Mm-hmm. I think what they have nowadays is a lot of lesser stimulating music that's creating more of a whatever society. Right. It's like whatever is just not a term I like to use because it's kind of like a non-thinking term. People say that, oh, whatever, but that's what kids like to use. Right. And I think there's so many choices of other words. It's kind of like that.
Well, I think this goes back to the days of MTV when they actually played music. You look at what was popular then, it's what was played on MTV. And that goes from the rock genre to the pop genre. And it's like that was your outlet. That's where you heard music. It was either that or the radio. That's where you heard it. So boom, that must be popular. I'm going to go buy that. And now there is no MTV, and what's on the radio is shit. And especially here in Los Angeles, because we don't even have a fucking, active rock radio station in Los Angeles. It's like people have to go out and find the music now.
When I was touring in California for the first time, I'd been out here before, and I love California. When I was a kid, I came out and went to the Malibu Grand Prix back in the day, way back. But, or maybe it wasn't even called that. It was like go-karts. But, coming out here and touring, they played our music on the mighty Met, KMET, which was there on Sunset Boulevard, I think. Okay. Over where the 101 Sunset is. All right. The building there. So right on top of the freeway. So that's where KMET was. And there was a scene. And then, of course, later on they had KNAC, which was a great station. Ton Mastery. Right. Was a great lady who, would play some of my music and, of course, the metal stuff. Right. So there was a scene. And I think what you're talking about in Europe is there are countries that definitely, there's just more acceptance and appreciation of this form of music. I think they have a greater appreciation of classical music. There's also, hip hop and and EDM,
Right.
which to me, I'm just not that music just doesn't really do much for me.
It's stab you in the eye with a spork. I can't.
Yeah,
I can't.
I don't really, but that's, I think that kind of combines with the dumbing down of our society
I agree.
because I mean, there's kids' toys that are more musically inclined than EDM.
It's true.
You just get a baby and they'll press some buttons on a toy. It'll probably be more of a creative musical direction than just
right.
But you know what? EDM, that's what's selling out. You'd be amazed.
I know.
That if you're playing EDM, that's how you're going to sell tickets. So playing rock music, that's like dinosaur. That's for old dinosaurs. But
right.
you know what? Hey, call me an old dinosaur. That's
hey,
fine.
I'm fine with it. And you know what? Being able to fucking,
I'm going to keep on rocking.
Hey, man, exactly. And being able to do what we do, even Soundcheck Live every Wednesday night, helping keep that fucking music alive. If you're ever in Los Angeles, please come down to Lucky Strike on a Wednesday night. Check out Soundcheck Live. It's this amazing all-star fucking jam every week that I am lucky enough to host. Can't wait for this week's show. I don't even know what's going on this week, but it's going to be fucking great. Ferlazzo puts together a fucking amazing show each and every week. So
it's phenomenal, and it's great that I've been fortunate and blessed to be part of that, and of course the other jam as well. And I just think that that's the type of action that it takes,
right.
The passion, the dedication, because to do a weekly jam, that's a lot of work. I do a jam which is once a year. It's called Neil and Michael's Metal Jam, and we're going to be doing it this year, actually in the 2017, on
cool.
January 18th. So that'll be on a Wednesday, but it would be near the Anaheim Convention Center. In that
That's
area.
NAMM week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do a jam where we have all these metal artists and some hard rock artists that are part of that, and we've done it this will be the 10th year in a row. So that's one of the things that I kind of get involved with.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I've got going is I just did a tour with my solo band. We were in Latin America, so we played in all throughout Mexico, places like Tampico and Mexico City and other places throughout Mexico, as well as other countries like El Salvador, San Salvador, and also in Guatemala. So there's plans to expand on that next year and go and play in other countries in Latin America. And there's countries I haven't been to. So, for me, it's breaking new ground and getting out there, because I don't have a hesitation to be a warrior
right.
and get on the road and get out there.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
care. You can send me to anywhere on the planet. I'll go, wherever there's an opportunity.
I'll go rock your turban off. I don't care.
So
I said that. You didn't say that. There you go.
So, we had the opportunity to play in Fredericia in Denmark this past summer. It was a great festival there, beautiful festival, Metal Magic Festival, and it was actually pouring rain when we played. But all of our fans and audience was out there, so it was a great show. We played that one. Uli John Roth was on the show, and some other really amazing bands. Another new band that I hadn't heard of before until I saw them play, Magister Templi. They're on Cruz del Sur Records. They're a band out of Norway. Really great band. I really enjoyed watching them. And there's some other really fantastic bands and really fantastic people there. So what a great experience. And then playing other festivals in Europe. We've played Headbangers Open Air a couple of times already, and got to play with Riot.
Nice.
That was really cool. I never did a show with them, actually, so that was the first one.
Nice.
And of course, there was bands like Diamond Head and Tigers of Pantang and folks like that. So all the NWO BHM bands. And had the opportunity to play actually recently in Tampa at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, the Hard Rock Cafe, with Michelangelo Badio. Played that with Jim Gillette, actually.
Oh, wow.
So I got to play that with some people, and I brought my buddy to jam with some other folks, Bill Hudson, who plays with Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So he got to play that as well, but it was really great. It was a great experience. And, so my plan is I'm working on something to play in Europe as a solo performance over there. So that might be coming up pretty quick here.
Cool.
And we'll see what 2017 has to offer. But we're definitely working on the recording. I think we've got the songs for both of these albums, for Death Riders and for Bleed the Hunger. It's just a matter of making that happen. It's not always the easiest when you don't have Warner Brothers or Epic Records or Geffen or labels that who knows if they even exist anymore.
Right.
A&M.
Yeah, I think there's actually 2 big labels now, and they own all the other labels.
Frontiers and Rat Pack and Nuclear Blast.
Yeah, well, they're the only ones that are actually doing something with our genre of music. Especially Rat Pack and Frontiers. They're doing great stuff with our genre. At least there's somebody out there doing it. Because you look at all the other record labels, it's like they're all under either Universal or Sony.
and I also work with some of those labels. I do interviews and reviews.
Yeah, that's right.
And other types of journalism.
Yeah,
video journalism with the Metal Voice out of Canada. They're out of Montreal.
Is that what we talked about? Is that what we did when I was hammered last Wednesday?
Yes, we got Izzy hammered on film. It's great.
Yes, it was. What was it, Courtney?
Party time.
Yes, it was party time. All right, I've got it. Courtney yelling "party time" as one of my drops as well. You can't hear it because you don't have headphones.
Cool.
On, but
which Courtney? The Courtney we know?
Yeah, the Courtney we know.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
she's awesome.
Yeah, and of course, every time her name comes up, I have to play.
She's played at Neil and Michael's Metal Jam.
She's a babe.
Yes. The drop is done.
Is that it?
That's it.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
I thought there was more.
What, drops?
Have you seen Courtney's tattoo?
Yeah.
It's cool, huh?
Yeah, she's great. She's one of my good friends. Yeah. So if you want to find you on social media,
the reason I say that is because it's my song on her.
Ah,
she got a tattoo on her.
See, that I did not know.
Yeah, I'm not just saying that.
I know.
To check her out. I'm saying
I
know.
It's
like on display, but it's like the song I wrote, so it's kind of
that's badass.
Kind of cool, yeah. And I remember when she showed it to me, like, okay, that's cool,
right? That's funny. Yeah. Social media, people want to find you.
Yeah, so you can always go to deathriders.com. We're on Facebook, Reverb Nation. There's also bleedthehunger.com, and we're also on Facebook and Reverb Nation and SoundCloud. So if you wanted to check out our music on Reverb Nation or SoundCloud, you can do that. For Bleed the Hunger, there's a number of songs up there that have been demoed to let people hear it, and there's also some Death Rider songs up there as well under deathriders.com or Death Riders, reverbnation.com/Death Riders. Also on Facebook, we have some pages up there, so please stop by, send your notes, your comments, your thoughts, your opinions, and your nice opinions or
nice opinions,
not so nice opinions. That's fine.
Whatever. Everybody,
I take it all.
Yeah,
and
that's what she said.
Yeah, not like that. But the Metal Voice will be back on there talking about the number one album, top 10 albums from 2016, and we got Izzy Presley on that one together.
Oh yes,
but he's a little bit hammered out of his mind.
I was kind of in Monsters of Rock cruise mode. A little bit, I guess you could say.
You might have still been drunk from that trip. What do you think?
Dude, my liver is somewhere in the South Pacific right now. It's still in the. I don't know. I haven't
in the
found
Bahamas?
it. Yeah, it's just no, because the last one was out of here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
one of these days, I'll get on one of those cruises.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
I've never even been on a cruise. I've been on a boat and I threw up. It was great.
These things are so big, you can.
I
barely
guess I
feel
shouldn't
them
have drank a 6-pack of Tecates.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it every
time.
time.
The boat was going like this and that and this and that. It's like.
I'm going to leave you. We're going to leave you. I'm going to ask you one question, a yes or no question. Don't have to expand on it. Yes or no. Anthrax is coming in town. They call you to do one song. Do you go up and do it?
Ain't going to happen.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen.
Not because I wouldn't consider it. It's just that it's not going to happen.
Well, no. I wasn't saying it was. I'm just saying theoretically, but if they called and said.
What would happen before that is Jimi Hendrix would rejoin the Monkees.
There you go. Ain't gonna fucking happen. This has been another fucking podcast. I'll cue my Black Diamond outro music here. Neil Turbin, Turbin. Did I just say Turbin? Turbin. Neil Turbin. He's going to punch me now. Check out his stuff on social media. Check out me on social media at Another Effin' Podcast and Izzy Presley 1, both on the Facebook. On the Twitter machine, Izzy_Presley. If you want to support the show monetarily, you absolutely can.
Check out Elvis's son, Izzy.
I wish I had that money. Izzy.Presley@gmail is your PayPal. What else do we got? Oh, yeah, check out all those great sponsors. Vid-Dash Decals, Rockstar Leatherworks, A&P Productions, Rockwood Saloon, who made that killer vest for me, Beater Amplification.
That's Tony. Tony's
Tony. Yeah, I love Tony. He's fucking great, man. He's fucking great. And of course, what was the last one? Sass Pants Productions.
Sassy Pants.
Design.
Beater. What about Beater?
I talked about Beater.
Well, I'm just trying to give you another plug there.
I appreciate that.
I seen that amp sitting over there.
I know, it's
When
beautiful.
you gonna crank that motherfucker up?
I'll turn it on for you right after this.
hear it.
All right. It's been another fucking podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week with Jerry Gemont. Fucking killer bass player, iconic. I do love you all.